So guys, in this next story, two brothers and their pal have been jailed after an innocent person was kidnapped and seriously assaulted because they wrongly believed he was an Albanian drug dealer. Faisal Fareed, Faizaan Fareed and Nicholas Shaw bundled the man into a car as he returned home from work in Darwen in June 2021. As the three men drove off with the victim aged in his 40s, he was attacked with weapons. He suffered 14 stab wounds and a collapsed lung. Even after they had realised that they'd abducted the wrong man, they continued to threaten him with knives. They eventually drove to Blackburn and abandoned the victim inside the car, and he managed to raise an alarm and was taken to hospital. So Preston Crown Court heard stories with regards to both brothers. The pair were obsessed with weapons and drugs, and between August 2020 and January 2021, they dealt heroin, cocaine and cannabis from a property in Blackburn. The property belonged to a man named Robert Weir, whose life and home had been taken over by the Fareed brothers in what police referred to an act of cuckooing. Mr. Weir was fed drugs to keep him quiet so the brothers could deal from his property, effectively handling heroin, cocaine and cannabis to the value of almost £20,000, which was then sold on the streets of Blackburn using trusted minions or runners who helped operate their crime gang via a drugs telephone line called the Ghost Line. Police had information on the Fareed's drug racket after being informed of the cuckooing by a distressed and terrified Mr. Weir back in October 2020. Officers launched Operation Greylock in the hope of snaring the brothers and their narcotics. In January 2021, police attended Faisal Fareed's home to arrest him on suspicion of conspiracy to supply drugs. There was a third man, Razvan Todinaru, who was one of the brothers' trusted runners. He was also arrested. Faizan Fareed remained outstanding for the drugs matter for months and continued to evade police capture until July this year. The prosecutor said £2,800 cash was seized from Faisal Fareed's bedroom. Receipts were also recovered from within Faisal Fareed's bedroom amongst the cash, which itemised a list of weapons purchased on two separate occasions from a shop in Leeds. One receipt showed that in December 27, 2020, a number of weapons were purchased from this shop, including axes, knives, air pistols, machetes and masks for just around £500 in cash. And it was weapons similar to these and purchased from the same store which would later be used in the kidnapping incident in Darwen. Meanwhile, Faisal, Faizaan, along with their brother Kamran, were also wanted by police in connection with an affray incident which dated back to October 2020, the same time Mr. Weir had reported the cuckooing to police. The court was told that Kamran Fareed, becoming insanely jealous of his ex-girl's new partner, together with his brothers, launched a vicious attack on the man and his friend in Blackburn. So one of the guys was attacked with a machete and a baseball bat, while the other one sustained a laceration to his leg for being stabbed. Mr. Elias told the court, this is the Fareed family taking the law into their own hands, once more using serious weapons. Some of the photographs showed knives similar to those utilised in other cases. He went on to say jealousy is sometimes called a green-eyed monster. Mature men sometimes cannot cope with their ex-partner moving on, and hear a rival voice talking to their former girlfriend even on a phone call can seem like a provocation, an insult which can cause hot-headed violence. In this case, family violence marked by the use of weapons for no sensible reason beyond is a perceived slight. With all these incidents being investigated by the police, skip forward to June 2021, and Faisal Fareed had been released over the drugs and affray matters, with Faizaan Fareed still on the run from police. The brothers turned their attention to a cannabis farm believed to be located in a DIY shop in the Birchwall area of Darwen. The court was told how the brothers staked out the property using inside information from the drugs underworld to pinpoint the exact time the crop would mature. Unbeknown to an innocent manor takeaway worker who parked his car outside the DIY shop every day to go to work, the Fareeds, along with their accomplice Nicholas Shaw, had earmarked this guy as the man responsible for the cannabis farm. His name was Mr. Mohammed. Intent on stealing the growth for their own gains, the brothers hatched a cruel plot to kidnap Mr. Mohammed and torture him until he allowed them into the property where they would see the cannabis. Mr. Elias said it was his misfortune that a gang of men mistook him for an Albanian gangster who was involved in the DIY shop on a cannabis farm and abducted him in his own car and tortured him with knives and a machete in an attempt to gain access to the shop. Mr. Mohammed was severely injured by these heartless men who effectively left him to die when their scheme fell apart. Luckily, he survived to be at court. He was utterly the victim of mistaken identity. He is not tainted with any suggestion of criminality. He was the wrong man in the wrong place at the wrong time. He said as Mr. Mohammed parked up on Sunday, June the 13th, 2021, Mr. Mohammed, having driven home from his work, left his Ford Fiesta in Darwen. As he got out of the car, he was jumped by men. They wore balaclavas and had machetes. He was pushed into the back seat and the keys were snatched from his hand. He was squeezed between two kidnappers in the back and two other men were in the front. The court was told how Mr. Mohammed tried to explain to the kidnappers that he was just an innocent person, but they wouldn't listen. Mr. Elias went on to say, Mohammed meanwhile realised he was bleeding. He had been stabbed. His breathing was making a bubbling sound. One of the abductors was poking him in the chest with a knife and he could feel the knife enter his chest. He said, just imagine how that might feel as these utterly ruthless men tortured him. He was told they were going to kill him. There was no reason not to believe them. Mr. Mohammed was bleeding badly. He asked if he could put a scarf on his head to staunch bleeding and a rolled up prayer mat under his arm where he was bleeding heavily. They took his cash from his wallet, around £1,600 to £1,700 he had saved as he was planning to buy a washer. Mr. Mohammed said he was going to bleed to death. He was bleeding internally. The kidnappers tried the keys out on the door of the DIY shop and of course they didn't work. Knives and machetes were held to Mr. Mohammed's neck and chest as the kidnappers insisted that these keys should work. They checked his credit cards. He was pointing out his t-shirt badge from the takeaway. Eventually it dawned on the criminals that they had made a mistake. The defendants then left Mr. Mohammed in the street bleeding to death. He was admitted to hospital and spent the next 2 weeks in critical care. Police launched an investigation and connected Shaw and the Fareed brothers, as well as two of the men who are yet to stand trial over the matters, to the kidnapping, tracing their mobile phones to the kidnap location and linking a BMW to Shaw. They also discovered multiple phone calls between the brothers and Shaw on the night the kidnapper found receipts of a shop from Leeds where Faisal Fareed had travelled just 2 days earlier to purchase weapons used in the kidnapping, the same store that they had used to purchase weapons for their drugs operation. Faisal and Faizaan Fareed and Nicholas Shaw all pleaded guilty to conspiracy to kidnap, and the Fareed brothers were also pleaded guilty to inflicting GBH. Faisal and Faizaan Fareed also pleaded guilty to conspiracy to supply heroin, cocaine and cannabis. So Faisal Fareed is 23, was jailed for a total of 11 years. Faizaan Fareed was handed a 10-year prison sentence and Nicholas Shaw was jailed for 6 years. So Mr. Mohammed was a hard-working, respectable Iraqi man, and he's basically said that he now hides in the corner of his living room, a place he can go to curl up and feel safe. He said in the statement, I am respectful, I enjoyed life, going out, seeing friends, I found pleasure in life and I was always smiling. That day changed me. They took everything away from me. I now see a psychologist. If it wasn't for her, I would not be here. The physical wounds have healed, but the scars are a daily reminder about what happened. There are holes everywhere. When I first came out of hospital, I could not walk and breathing was so painful. Due to having stab wounds all over my body, I could not get a comfy sleep at night and I felt paralysed. I struggled to get up and down the stairs and even the simplest tasks make me exhausted. I still have physical pain in both sides. I cannot bear going to the doctors as they will ask me questions about this incident. He said they went through my pockets, took my personal items. I asked them to let me out so that I could go to hospital, but they didn't. Instead, they left me in my car bleeding. I feel they left me to die. The attack is constantly on my mind. I cannot escape the reminders. I get horrific flashbacks where my heart is thumping and I'm sweating. It has left me with anxiety and depression. Every few hours I'm reminded it has turned my life upside down. He said I was brought up to work hard and respect people. I am a good man. I did not deserve what those men did to me and I do not deserve to feel this way now. They have broken me. So guys, this is a new story coming up from Lancashire Ways. It's your boy GC. Keep it locked, keep it real.